Guys, Aussie Griffin here. So, I'm redoing a video I did about psychopaths and 2 excuses they use. I'm doing it because I wound up losing a subscriber over my comments. Now, first of all, and I'm going to come back to this, I am not a doctor, I am not a scientist, I am not an official researcher, I am a YouTuber giving my opinion based on my experience. End of story. If you can find better research, please put it in the comment section, please post a video response. Do not stay silent. Silence is a cancer. That's what my good friend Richard O'Brien would say. And a big shout out to him. Okay, so psychopaths have no empathy for other people, yet they use 2 excuses for their bad, antisocial, ultimately purely destructive behavior. 1, they have Aspergers. 2, they have depression. I'm going to tackle the quick one first. Asperger's is a symptom where, Asperger's is a condition on the autism spectrum. It doesn't officially exist as its own condition anymore, which I personally think is a joke, however that's a whole different thing. People with Asperger's are capable of love. People with Asperger's are capable of empathy. They just can't read your face, they can't read the tone of your voice, they can't read your body language. That's it. End of story. The rest of the time, they're thinking, feeling human beings. They will take morality, consequence, and the lives of others into account when they are dealing with other people. That's it. They just have a really hard time figuring out why people are doing weird things with their bodies all the time. They don't, if you're Italian and you've got Asperger's, you have my unlimited sympathy. So, I was going to say something in Italian. Of course, my Italian's shot these days. Now, the second one comes from my own personal experience. Once again, I repeat this again. This is from my own personal experience. Depression. A lot of psychopaths will blame depression for their outbursts and their bad behavior and their destructive tendencies and their antisocial escapades. Don't buy it. If someone has depression, in my experience, everything, when they lash out at people, when they're aggressive, when they're angry about things, the way they'll express it, they still do what most human beings do, which is they're trying to communicate with other people. They're trying to explain themselves, and often to themselves. They are trying to say, this is how I feel, now you understand it. They want to be understood. A psychopath does not care whether you understand them or not. They do not care. If someone does something cruel or mean, and there isn't ultimately something they're trying to explain to you, or they're not trying to, or they don't say, you see, this is why I did it. If there's no forthcoming explanation, if they're just vindictively cruel, that isn't something you can blame on depression. Oh, it was because of my family. Oh, it was because of my life. Blah, 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 blah. Excuses, excuses, excuses. Psychopaths love them. Depressed people, you'll find, come back to the same things over and over and over. They are haunted by them. I should know. I've had my bouts with depression. And let me tell you, it comes back, from my experience, it comes back to personal inadequacies. When people feel that they cannot explain things to others, when they care about others and they cannot communicate with them, they cannot express their affection for them, they cannot express themselves adequately. Depressed people will go back to these things. However, psychopaths tend to change their story every so often, and when you compare it with other people, they will give radically different accounts based on what the other person wants to hear. A depressed person will give more or less the same story. So, from my experience, that's the difference. Now, as I said before, if anyone can please show better sources or a superior understanding of the subject matter and make a video response, that would be ideal. Or cite journals, studies, anything like that to explain it better than I can, I will freely take that response. Don't be silent. As I said, silence is a cancer. It kills you slowly. If you, for whatever reason, can't get on screen, yet you can send me links to the sources. I'm talking original source material. Don't just say, I read it in this journal. Just give me a link so I can read that article from a journal or something like that, and then I'll happily read out the research. Otherwise, just make a video of your own, relate your own experiences, show me where I'm wrong in my methodology or my explanation. I'm happy for that. I'm Aussie Griffin. I can't say more until you do. You have a good one.
Are you ever depressed?
Yes, I get, and I think the depressions that I get are almost entirely the result of the Puritan ideals imposed by a Cambridge upbringing. The profound self-punishing depressions that one gets in the intellectual life, and the life which comes from Cambridge, are due to feelings of having fallen below the goals set by certain phantom goal setters.
But it isn't that if we ever rang the Miller doorbell, that your wife would say, "I'm sorry, but Jonathan is locked in the bedroom and can't come out for 2 or 3 days."
Oh no, I don't think that anything like that will happen. Now, what I can do is to put up a fairly passable version of conviviality in the presence of depression. But I don't think I've ever reached satanic and totally destructive levels of depression, but they've been pretty bad at times, yes. I mean, depression is something I think that happens quite frequently. There's a wonderful line, that William James has about depression. He obviously got depressions a great deal. In one of his letters, he says that the best way to get round depression is to understand that they are the moods of the mind, including these great black moods, are simply like the weather, and one just simply has to take shelter until the clouds begin to part again. And there is a feeling that as long as one sees them as being things which simply happen to the mind, meteorological changes, one simply takes shelter, stands in the doorway, clutches one's raincoat around one's neck and waits until the shower finishes.
You're able to work. You've never been...
Well, I can't work during depressions. I do find that depression slows the handwriting. A stasis begins to occur. And, of course, there is, in a way, a spiritual and moral implosion. And you get to the stage rather like those sort of dwarf stars. There's been an enormous expansion of energy and ideal, and quite suddenly it all shrinks to a gravitational center of infinite density and tiny extent.
Why, as a psychiatrist's son, have you not availed yourself of that science to help at times like that? Or do you think it would, in your case,
I've
have
always
an
felt it was
influence?
too laborious, and also again, it's part of my general pessimism about undertaking measures to help myself, and I would prefer to, as it were, stand in the doorway and wait for the shower to pass,
Wait it out.
rather than ask someone to part the clouds for me.
Yeah.
But then I think this is, in a way, perhaps is a difference between England and America. There is a sort of stoicism about Europeans, a belief that the human situation is pretty bad anyway. And that it can't be put that much righter than it is. And I think that America is much more based on the expectation that things can be fixed. The moods, talents, social situations can be fixed. They can be put right. Effort can be put in and results got out. There's a sort of stoical nihilism which is part of the European idea, which says, well, it's a wreckage. Find some shelter somewhere, huddle under the rafters and wait until that lot's blown by, wait till the soldiery has raped and pillaged this village, and then you'll find some sort of life for yourself in the wreckage.
Who was it who said, I think I heard you quote it one time, that life is, if you admit that life is horrible, 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 then you can begin to enjoy it.
That's Bertrand Russell.
Well, this is Bertrand Russell.
Yes.